Expand design, a roomy cabin, dual-tone interiors, 15 smart utility spaces, and a large boot space, all there to expand your life. Welcome to Easy Space.
The backdrop where Australia is facing international condemnation over the government's handling of two reported boats carrying at least 200 purported Sri Lankan asylum seekers. Australia's Immigration Minister Scott Morrison is due to arrive in Sri Lanka next week. The Department of Government Information, quoting the Minister of External Affairs, noted that Morrison will arrive in Sri Lanka early on Wednesday morning and will be greeted by Deputy Minister of External Affairs Niomal Pereira. He is due to meet with President Mahinda Rajapaksa and senior government officials during his visit. Meanwhile, Australia's Foreign Minister Julie Bishop has maintained that Australia is abiding by its international obligations in an interview with Australia's public broadcaster ABC. Bishop, however, did not confirm the existence of the two boats, maintaining her government's policy of not commenting on-water operations.
We don't discuss operational matters, we don't discuss on-water operational matters, and we certainly don't flag our intentions to the people smuggling trade. This is a criminal trade and we're determined to stamp it out.
Okay, because the United Nations, for one, certainly thinks that international law could have been broken. In this case, they think that it has happened. They've recently, in the last few minutes, put out a statement condemning that action. Are you in breach of international law if a transfer like that takes place?
Australia abides by its international obligations and will continue to do so, but we will also restore our border protection laws to ensure that people do not die at sea. There is nothing humanitarian about encouraging the people smuggling trade to put people on unseaworthy boats and encourage them to take a dangerous sea journey to Australia. Men, women and children have drowned at sea and we're determined to put an end to it.
And in putting an end to it, is it okay to break international law if that is required to put an end to the people smuggling trade?
The Australian government will abide by its international obligations.
Okay, well the UN says that under international law you must screen asylum seekers that come to Australia for refuge, for instance, that no individual can be turned away involuntarily. Can you guarantee that that has not happened under this government?
Australia is aware of its international obligations and will abide by them.
But you still won't say whether these transfers have taken place at sea, so how will people know that you actually are abiding by them?
It's the government's policy not to comment on operational matters, and I don't intend to start. We are not going to give the people smuggling trade the opportunity to take advantage of people and take money from them and put them on unseaworthy boats, so we're not going to discuss operational matters that would assist and aid and abet a criminal activity.
Now, what danger people face in returning to Sri Lanka is going to depend on their circumstances, on their individual stories. And of course, that is why people need to be individually assessed to see what obligations and the strength in which they invoke Australia's obligations. That's why there needs to be a process of individual assessment. But actually, the issue here is that the Australian people have a right to know. It's not a matter of mere curiosity on the part of the Australian public about the fate of hundreds of people or about the actions of their own government. The Australian people have a right to know. Ultimately, the government are responsible to the Australian people.
The ABC, quoting the Tamil Refugee Council, reports that at least 11 people who Australia has reportedly handed over to the Sri Lankan Navy have been previously tortured. The ABC reports that the asylum seekers reportedly are, or have been, aboard an Australian customs ship and despite having claims for protection, will reportedly be, or have been, handed over to the Sri Lankan Navy. Newsfirst made several attempts to contact the spokesperson of the Sri Lanka Navy, Commander Kosala Warnakulasuriya, and the Director of the Media Centre of the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Brigadier Ruwan Wanigasuriya, to make inquiries regarding these allegations. Our attempts were unsuccessful. Meanwhile, the ABC reports that Australia's Immigration Minister Scott Morrison is to introduce a national interest test to screen asylum seekers with the intention of preventing the granting of permanent protection visas to illegal arrivals. The ABC reports that Morrison's move comes after Australia's High Court rejected a cap on permanent protection visas recently.
As a result of the High Court decision a couple of weeks ago, we now see this minister seek to place himself above the High Court as well. This is a minister who placed himself above the Parliament, placed himself above the High Court. He certainly places himself above the Australian people in not giving people information, and for him, Australia's institutions, our legal system, our parliamentary democracy is a mere afterthought.
8 days have lapsed since the last known contact with the asylum seekers. We report, you decide.